If you are stuck in the Roth IRA income phase out range, stop contributing right now, or it could cost you. Let me show you why. Most people hear Roth IRA and immediately think tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, and no RMDs down the road. And that's all true. It's one of the best retirement tools out there. But what most folks don't realize is that if you make too much money, the IRS puts limits on how much you can contribute directly. And if you are in that gray area, the phase out range, you can get yourself into trouble by putting in too much. The penalties for excess contributions are not fun. And I'll tell you right now, you do not want to F around and find out when you file your taxes. First things first. Let's talk about the numbers for 2025. The IRS adjusts these every year for inflation, so you cannot just set it and forget it. If you're a single filer and you're making over $150,000, or if you're married filing jointly and your household is bringing in more than $236,000, you need to lean in and listen closely. This is officially your territory. You've hit that income phase out range. What this means in plain English is that the government starts to limit how much you can directly put into your Roth IRA. It's not a hard no just yet, but hold on, let's do some math first. It creates this weird situation where part of your contribution might be a normal direct deposit, but the other part will need to be done through a strategy we call the Backdoor Roth IRA conversion. It sounds more complicated than it is, and I promise you I'm going to walk you through it. Now, there's also a hard ceiling. If you're a single filer and your modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI, is over 165,000, you're done. You cannot contribute one single dollar directly to a Roth IRA for 2025. The door is closed. Similarly, for those of you who are married and filing taxes jointly, if your household MAGI tops 246,000, that door is shut for you too. At this point, if you want to get money into a Roth IRA, your entire contribution, whether it's the $7,000 limit for those under 50 or the $8,000 limit for those 50 and over, has to go through the back door. Don't worry, it's not as sketchy as it sounds. It is a completely legal and legitimate strategy that people at your income level use at all the time. And we will get to the nuts and bolts of how that works a bit later on. For now, just remember these key numbers. They are the guardrails for everything else we're about to discuss. So let's really dig into this phase out range, because this is where all the confusion happens. This is the gray area where mistakes are made. For a single person in 2025, the fund begins at a modified adjusted gross income of $150,000. That's the floor. The ceiling, as we said, is $165,000. The difference between those two numbers is $15,000. That $15,000 window is your entire phase out range. That means your ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA diminishes linearly across that range. And the more you make within that window, the less you can contribute directly. So let's put some real numbers on this to make it crystal clear. Imagine you are a single guy, you're 55, and you had a great year. Your modified adjusted gross income is looking like it's going to be around $160,000. You're not above the limit, but you're smack in the middle of that phase out zone. So what do? First, we figure out how far into the range you are. We take your income, 160,000, and subtract the start of the phase out, which is 150,000. So that gives us a difference of $10,000. Now, we take that $10,000 and divide it by the total size of that phase out window, which we already established is $15,000. So 10,000 divided by 15,000 gives us about 67%, or 2/3 if you prefer fractions. And this percentage, 67%, represents the portion of your contribution that is disallowed from being made directly. And it is the part that you're phased out of. So let's apply this to the contribution limits. Let's say you are under age 50. So your maximum contribution is $7,000 in 2025. We take that $7,000 and multiply it by the disallowed percentage, which is roughly 66.67%. That gives us $4,660. This $4,660 is the amount that must be contributed through a backdoor Roth conversion. It's also rounded up to the nearest tens, and that's why it's $4,660. The remaining portion, which is about 33.33% of your $7,000 limit, comes out to $2,340. And that's the amount you're still allowed to contribute directly to your Roth IRA. Now, for some of you watching this, you are probably in the 50 and over club, which means you get that extra $1,000 catch-up contribution. Your total limit is $8,000. The math is exactly the same, just with a bigger starting number. We take your $8,000 limit and multiply it by that same 66.66% disallowed portion, and that comes out to $5,330, which has to go through the back door. The other 33.33% of your $8,000, which is $2,670, can be contributed directly to the Roth IRA. You can see why I said at the very beginning to just not contribute directly if you're in this range. And the math is not rocket science, but it is tedious and it's so easy to mess up. If you miscalculate and put in too much as a direct contribution, the IRS considers that an excess contribution and they will penalize you for it. And it's a 6% penalty per year for as long as that excess money stays in the account. And frankly, it's just not worth the risk or the paperwork nightmare to fix it. My take on this is if you even think you are going to be in this range, just wait. You have until the tax filing deadline, April 15th, 2026, to make your 2025 contribution. By then, you will know your exact income and you can make the right move without any guesswork. Now, let's look at the situation for married couples filing jointly. The same principle applies, but the numbers are different. And the window is actually tighter. The phase out for you starts at a household modified adjusted gross income of $236,000 and it ends completely at $246,000. The difference here is just $10,000. That's a much smaller window to navigate than the $15,000 range for single filers, which means your eligibility drops off much faster. So let's use another example. Let's say you and your spouse project your household modified adjusted gross income to be $240,000 for 2025. You're right in that $10,000 phase out window. So first, we find out how far in you are. We take your income, $240,000, and subtract the starting point, $236,000. And that leaves us with $4,000. Next, we divide that $4,000 by the total size of the phase out window, which is $10,000. That gives us a simple percentage of 40%. This 40% is the portion of your contribution that is disallowed for direct contributions, while the other 60% is good to go. So for each spouse who is under age 50, the max contribution is $7,000. And keep in mind that $7,000 is for each spouse. And we take 40% of $7,000, which is $2,800. And that $2,800 per person has to be done by a backdoor Roth conversion. Now, the remaining 60% of $7,000 is $4,200. And that's the amount each of you can contribute directly to your respective Roth IRAs. In total, the household puts $8,400 in directly and has to run $5,600 through the backdoor process. If you and your spouse are both over 50, the contribution limit for each of you is $8,000. The percentages stay the same, so 40% of $8,000 is $3,200, and that's the backdoor portion for each of you. And the other 60% of $8,000 is $4,800, which is the direct contribution amount for each of you. Again, you can see how this partial contribution and partial conversion can get a little messy. It requires tracking two different types of transactions for both you and your spouse. It's just cleaner to wait, confirm your final income, and if you're over the limit, just do the entire amount as a backdoor Roth. So what exactly is this backdoor Roth IRA conversion and how does it work? Let's peel back the layers on this. And when you're under the Roth IRA income limits, life is simple. You take money from your checking account or savings account, you transfer it to your Roth IRA, you invest it, and you're done. That's a direct contribution. Easy. But when you're in that phase out range or completely over it, you have to take a different path. Let's stick with our married couple who makes $240,000. We figured out they can each contribute $4,200 directly. So for that part, they will do exactly what I just described, which is to transfer $4,200 from their bank accounts into their respective Roth IRAs. And again, that's $4,200 to each spouse in two separate Roth IRAs. For the other $2,800 each, the disallowed portion, they have to use the back door. Here's the two-step process. First, each spouse contributes $2,800 from their bank account into a traditional IRA. This is a non-deductible contribution because their income is too high to get a tax deduction for it. Second, as soon as that money settles in the traditional IRA, they immediately convert that entire $2,800 from the traditional IRA into their Roth IRA. It's basically a direct transfer from the traditional account to the Roth account, and which is a whole lot easier if both of those accounts, the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA, are with the same brokerage firm like Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, or something else. Now, There are a couple of critical tripwires here you have to be aware of. The first and most important is something called a pro-rata rule. The rule is the boogeyman of backdoor Roth conversions. The entire process works cleanly and tax-free only if you do not have any pre-existing pre-tax money in your or any traditional IRA accounts, and this includes SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, or any rollover IRAs you might have from previous 401ks. It does not matter if that money is at a different brokerage. The IRS looks at all of your IRA accounts as one big pot. If you have, say, $98,000 of pre-tax money sitting in an old rollover IRA and you try to convert a new non-deductible $2,800, the IRS will say that 97% of your conversion is taxable. It completely defeats the purpose of doing a backdoor Roth IRA tax-free. So before you even attempt this, you have to make sure you have a $0 pre-tax balance across all of your traditional IRAs. The second thing you must do is file an IRS Form 8606. This form tells the IRS what you did. It tracks your non-deductible basis, which is the $2,800 you put in after tax, and reports the conversion to your Roth IRA. And this is how you prove to them that the conversion should not be taxed. Forgetting this form is just asking for a letter from the IRS. You're basically just documenting an after-tax transfer from one retirement account to another. And as long as you did it right and you don't have that pesky pro-rata rule to deal with, you should not owe a dime in taxes on the conversion itself. One final key is to convert that money as quickly as possible after you contribute it to the traditional IRA. If you let that money sit there and it earns interest or dividends, those earnings will be tax deferred. And when you convert them, they will be taxable as ordinary income. So the best practice is to contribute, then convert the very next day. So let's bring this all home. The main takeaway is that if you're not absolutely certain what your income is going to be for 2025, you can always schedule a consultation with me by visiting firestation.com/consultation, but it is perfectly okay. And in my opinion, much smarter to just wait. Wait until you're preparing your tax return in early 2026. And at that point, your income for 2025 is no longer a guess. It's a hard number on a piece of paper. You will know for sure if you're under the limit in the phase out range or completely over it. Then you can make your contribution or conversion with total confidence. Remember, you have until the tax deadline, April 15th, 2026, to put money into your Roth IRA for the 2025 tax year. There's no rush and no reward for getting it wrong. You can go to firestation.com/resources to get your free resources and retirement calculators. And this has been another beast of a video, and we got a lot out of it.